Be advised, the opinions and views of the hosts and guests do not reflect those of the station.
You are what you watch. Hello, my name is Harry Tambotco and you're watching Talk to Harry. In tonight's feature, what we will do is we will concentrate on a specific country, basically for trade, and how our working relationships have matured or where it's going. The country I'm talking about is basically Australia. And the person who will represent the conversations or our discussions this evening is none less than the chairman of the Philippine-Australia Business Council. Now, what exactly are we going to talk about? Well, it's not going to be another talk show wherein it's just a basic interview of what's going on and all their policies and whatnot. No, we'll go straight into the meat as far as issues that seem to be very sensitive to us. It's called procrastination. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not exactly that we've been very successful with all our trade worldwide, although we do have very good bilateral relations with many countries. Kaya nga lang, parang naiipit, mabagal, hindi natatapos, parang napakatagal. It's like our judiciary. It takes 50 years before we resolve an issue. In this case, we have certain men, certain gentlemen and women, through their advocacies, personal advocacies, because of their entrepreneurship background and their business acumen, push specific issues a little faster, a little further, basically for nation building. Our guest, who is the chairman of the Philippine-Australia Business Council, is actually an entrepreneur, a very successful entrepreneur, a super brand actually. He was very successful with brands Cilium, I'm sure you all know about this. It's now with Pascual Industries, but he created the product and branded it. He's created ABW, alfalfa, barley, and wheatgrass. He's created Cran UTI. If you're not taking any of these products, it's about time you go and buy it. You can get these at the Mercury Drugs. You've got Gargle. You see, the reason I know about all these products is because I've been using it. He's been supporting my program in the last 2-3 years. And one more product. It's nice how he puts it. The last thing you wear at night, nighty. This is what I put on my face. Now, I know I'm not exactly that good looking, pero maganda pa naman ang kutis ko at my age. That's all because of nighty. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Albert Garcia.
Hello, Harry.
Sorry, I had that funny intro for you. I just wanted to break it down to sort of soften it. Kasi napaka-seryoso pag-uusapan natin.
Yes, yes. Anyway, how are you, Harry?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. Thank you for inviting.
Yes. Well, I always have you as a marketing man because that's really your expertise and your competence.
Yeah.
You're an entrepreneur, a very successful one at that, and you're a brand custodian, and you've been very sensitive to all your products. I didn't realize you have very strong advocacies towards nation building. Now, I know I've interviewed you once about Rotary, and it's called Rotary Watch.
Exactly.
Yes, where you empower the citizens
Yep.
to actually take charge of the enforcement and don't just be a bystander, which I found interesting because it goes through all the different Rotary clubs, not just District 1, 2, but all 10. I didn't realize you're chairman of the Philippine-Australia Business Council. Now, I looked through this document, and it seems we have a lot of issues going forward. So let's go through it.
Yes, Harry. The Philippines-Australia Business Council, which I'm currently the chairman, has been in existence since 1975. A lot of people don't realize this, but it's one of the very few, if not the only, business council private sector representative that runs parallel to the government-to-government talks between the Philippines and Australia.
What do you mean by that? Pag government to government, sila-sila, ang business, business to business.
Well, we were created at the time that the Australian and Philippine governments formalized the economic relationships back then.
Bilateral,
And
whatever.
it was deemed appropriate at the time that it would be pointless not to have the private sector talks running parallel to that, meaning that if there are any private sector concerns in the relationship, trade, business, on how to do business with Australia or how to do business with the Philippines, then the private sector of both countries should participate in the
Tama yun.
talks so that any issues that might impede any trade between the two countries can be resolved, not just at the private sector level, but also at government. If there are issues that prevent the private sector from engaging in a more efficient way between the two countries, then so be it.
So basically facilitating the avenues and the infrastructure.
yeah.
How important is Australia to the Philippines and vice versa?
Well, important enough that the Philippine-Australia ministerial meetings, which is also known as PAM, are held every 2 years. Each country hosts the meeting, and the last one was just recently on June 15 and 16 in Canberra.
Right.
And I was there representing the Philippine private sector and to put forward the Philippine concerns in doing business with Australia. Of course, from a government point, the Philippines, from a trade point, is represented by Secretary Gregorio Domingo. From
Domingo
DTI,
himself,
of course, and from DFA by our Secretary Albert Del Rosario. So they conduct their own meetings, but there is a day where the private sectors from both countries meet with their respective ministers at the time. And in Australia, it's Minister for Trade Craig Emerson.
All right.
And Minister for Foreign Affairs, it's Kevin Rudd.
Let's put on those pictures as we talk, video inserts, because we have the photos right here in the studio, so at least you can see how these meetings just transpired. Now, perception. Australia exports very strong on food, milk, dairy products, and beef. Australia, one of the biggest resource for minerals and natural resources to China, which is why they're way, way on top. Australia, a lot on migration, reverse migration, more of Filipinos going there as professionals on visas and whatnot. It's the gateway as well into New Zealand. Australia, technology transfer, and a lot of, let's see, if I'm not mistaken, all our copper for all our air conditioning and even our glass at one point, literally glass, originates from Australia. Let's go to the issues. Let's go straight to the trade agreement.
Recently, in the early part of 2010, the ASEAN-Australia-New Zealand Free Trade Agreement came into effect. What that means for Philippine exporters to Australia is that virtually 95% of the goods from the Philippines to Australia is imported into Australia duty-free.
Oh, duty-free, huh?
Yeah. The other
good.
5% of the commodities will be resolved and implemented over a course of the next 5 years. In turn, 85% of Australian commodities into the Philippines would be duty-free.
What would be those products, more or less, roughly?
Well, you're talking about the broad spectrum. Right? In terms of those that do not yet qualify for duty-free import, I have to look at my notes for that. But effectively, Harry, what this means is that finally, the Philippines is able to compete against the other ASEAN countries that have been exporting to Australia in more favorable terms. More favorable terms because of a free trade agreement between the two countries, say Thailand and Australia. So because of that free trade agreement between the two countries, the Philippines has been left behind.
Oh, because every time I travel to the ASEAN countries, basically the beef and dairy products, alam mo, they play a very, very big role all over Singapore, Hong Kong, Thailand, Vietnam, even Indonesia.
Definitely.
But parang tayo naiwan.
Yeah. So exactly, largely because the other ASEAN countries have entered into a bilateral free trade agreement. Right. Now, with the ASEAN, of course, we are part of ASEAN free trade agreement. We are now able to compete against Thailand or Malaysia on the same commodities. Where before,
so we can expand exports and imports as well.
But where before, if all things being equal, why import from the Philippines when the tariff at the other end would be 5 to 10%
yes,
more?
Mas mataas.
Right? So source it from other countries,
Correct.
but not anymore. So again, for exporters to Australia, we are saying, please be aware of the Australia-New Zealand ASEAN Australia-New Zealand Free Trade Agreement, and inform your suppliers or your buyers
and take advantage
and
of
take
the
advantage
trade.
of
Yes,
it.
take advantage. Let's go to the next issue, which is rather sensitive. Sensitive in the Philippines, sensitive to Australia as well. Regional security, Mindanao.
Yes.
My God, what a big mouthful. Sige nga.
Okay. For many years now, the PABC has been advocating that the two governments, Australia and the Philippines, deliver more of the bilateral programs and projects in Mindanao.
Kasi food basket, mineral basket.
It is Mindanao is considered by Australia as one of the regional security issues places, right?
Okay. Correct. Even America, I'm sure. And now China.
and what we're saying is, to address that issue for Australia, you really have to have economic gains made in Mindanao.
For the people.
Okay. Now, how does one do that? We have had a program in the Philippines called RORO, right?
Yes.
Roll on, roll off, which links northern Philippines through the Visayas into Mindanao and making it one big super nautical highway.
Malakas yan kay GMA. Talaga na-implement yan.
Let's not talk about
the
politics of the project, but the project itself is very laudable because it finally connects all the 7,000 islands, or at least the major islands, right?
Malaking bagay yung RORO.
Yeah. Now, we all know that to ship goods from Mindanao up north to Manila is something like 10 times more expensive than shipping a container from Manila to Hong Kong. And I kid you not, a container...
I didn't realize that.
The container freight cost of a 20-foot container from Manila to Hong Kong is something like $10 to $20.
Okay.
Only $20 to ship one container load from Manila to Hong Kong. And the goods to ship from Mindanao to Manila is very, very expensive. So why ship the goods back?
Yes.
What we're saying is that from Mindanao, you continue the trade route down to the BIMP Ayaga, which is the Brunei, Indonesia, Philippines, Malaysia, or Malaysia, Philippines. But the current situation with the BIMP Ayaga project is minus X or minus Malaysia right now. There's some internal issues. Setting that aside, if you look further south to Mindanao into BIMP Ayaga, a little bit further south is already the Northern Territory of Australia.
Darwin,
right? Now, if you keep going south of that, the Adelaide-Darwin Railway has been in operation, right? Now, that actually then opens up for the Philippines markets all the way further south into the Pacific Island nations of, say, Tonga, Numia, Rorotura, all these island nations that have never traditionally been export markets for us. From Australia's perspective, it opens up markets north of Northern Territory into BIMP Ayaga, into southern Mindanao, back into the northern Philippines.
So why go north? Go south.
Well, for us, it's go south.
Go south.
And for Australia, it's go north.
Right? Correct. For Australia, go north.
And
you meet towards Darwin and
exactly.
Indonesia, going up. But alam mo, we just got the train going here in Bicol, which we mothballed for close to 30 years. Today they're even talking about passenger travel. I mean, poo-poo with all of that. Dapat yan, freight freight car travel to travel goods back and forth. Parang ang liit ng what is the Philippine-Australia Business Council promoting or proposing for the Mindanao sensitivities, especially, okay, the nautical highway?
The nautical highway is there, and again, we can only advocate for the different business groups and the different communities that will be affected by any commercial activity.
So security, basically.
For example, in the case of airlines,
right.
Very recently, as
skies.
recent as 2 months ago,
Yes.
the first flight from Darwin to Manila came up through Jetstar.
Because open skies na eh.
Not only that, but there is a commercial reality of distance and time. From Darwin to
I didn't
Manila,
know
it's
that.
4 hours.
I didn't realize
Okay.
that.
4 hours.
Sa Clark pumapasok?
No,
Sa Dami?
in
Here,
NAIA, right?
okay,
In
okay.
Manila. And to their credit, the Australian logistics and transport companies did set up a national conference to look exactly at the effect of the RoRo project into Bimpayaga. So they are very active in trying to move northbound in their case. Right?
Yes, yes.
Why go all the way back to Sydney or why go all the way back to Brisbane
go up.
when you can keep going up, right? And I can imagine that at some point in time, the not just inter-island, but inter-country shipping
yes, inter-country.
within the Bimpayaga area will start to happen, right?
What are our sensitivities or shortcomings? Because you have security issues.
Well, definitely you have security issues. I mean, to begin with, it's very difficult to police 7,000 islands, right? But nevertheless, like everything else, Harry, if there are economic gains for the people to,
It will stabilize, yes.
it naturally comes as a consequence that there will be a higher level of peace and order anyway.
Sabagay, you give them, don't give them money straight out. Give them business.
Give them business, right?
Commerce.
And of course,
Promote commerce.
another thing that outcome that we have been trying to generate is that Australia is very good at growing cattle, right?
That's
growing,
right.
but they have difficulty in fattening them because of the very nature of the country. It takes so many square kilometers to feed one
Tayo
cow.
naman baliktad. Fattening
we
tayo.
have, we have all the fodder, we have all the grass. So what we have been saying is, grow your cattle in Australia, ship them to Mindanao.
We'll fatten it
We'll
for
fatten it, and then you have a third country market for the two of us, right?
Correct.
So you're good at something. We have the natural resources to feed them, and perhaps using the halal treatment somewhere in Mindanao
Yes.
that you can then export to third countries. I mean, considering that
That's a really good point of view, huh?
well, and it makes it much more relevant, Harry, because an issue currently in Australia is the export of live cattle into Indonesia, right? And there's issue from a, I guess from a humanitarian or a animal treatment matter where they're slaughtered.
How they're slaughtered.
Well, very inhumanely,
Yes.
from an Australian perspective, right? But again, if it can be done here, done in Mindanao, right, within the proper conditions.
Technology lang naman yan. Technology transfer lang naman.
That's all it is.
But how does Australia or the council, in your case, okay, to solve security, economics, provide commerce, it will resolve the issue of security. Agreed. How do you propose to resolve the domain issue? Alam mo naman dyan, nag-aagawan who owns it, you know? Just on the families alone, they're in conflict.
Well, that is an area that the PABC does not wish to become involved. It's not our, I will use the same term, it's not our domain, right?
Okay.
We are not engaged. We simply are here to advocate the trade between Australia and the Philippines and encourage Philippine exporters to look south into Australia as potential markets for goods and products.
Okay. Albert, we're going to have to take a short break. Ladies and gentlemen, as you heard this first portion, this is basically unrolling or folding out the exact interests of both countries. And yes, why not? Both countries need, everybody needs trade. Basic commerce yan eh. And there is a real initiative from Australia, most especially, and Australia-New Zealand partnerships, and the Philippines to actually, or a sensitivity looking towards the Philippines to promote and generate more commerce and trade. Now, we have certain issues. When we come back, we'll go into these issues. It may be political, but nevertheless, the problem is these considerations that procrastinate and hold back projects. For example, the topic on natural resources, mining, how this all works and how it unfolds and how it relates to all of us. Because our perceptions, as far as the general public is concerned, especially about mining, ang tingin natin dyan, bubutasin na naman, bubungkalin na naman ang bundok, and whatnot. Alam mo, it's incorrect. Our perceptions are totally wrong. It's 2011. There's called climate change. It's called sensitivity to environment. All of these issues have been addressed. The problem is, we sit here, for example, when it comes to natural resources and mining, and we let these natural resources given to us by no less the supreme leader, God, and all we're doing about it is sleeping on it. Stay with us and learn more about it when we get back. Hello, my name is Harry Tumbuadco. You're now on the second portion, the second episode of Talk to Harry. Our guest is from the Philippine-Australian Business Council, the chairman no less, Albert Garcia. When we left you, we were talking about the railroad, the infrastructure, and the nautical highway. And we were proposing, well, Albert Garcia together with the council is proposing the trade, the commerce, the bilateral agreements that will use the trade routes going down instead of going north, going south, and for Australia going north on trading products and opening up new markets. Albert, let's go into skills replenishment.
Yes, sorry.
Okay, the issues on skills replenishment.
It's a very, I guess, touchy topic that, again, the PABC has been advocating for Australia to recognize that it has a serious role to play in skills replenishment. What it means is, very simply, if we have, for example, someone that has very high-level skills in, say, meteorology or pag-asa, for example.
Okay, yeah.
We have trained these people from the time they were grade school, high school, college, into their skills in meteorology. Because of Australia's very attractive immigration program, they attract the best that there is from countries from the world, right, into Australia. So, of course, to help develop
so we can pick
Australia.
up a lot of our technology.
They pick up a lot of our people from where technology comes in. I mean, it's a portable brain. You walk out of it. What we're saying is that Australia, and for that matter, any other government that attracts our workers to their shores, do not contribute to the development of that individual a single cent. They harvest, as I always put it, they harvest a ripe person with all the skills acquired over the years, and from the day they set foot into their new country, and it could be America, could be Canada, could be Australia, they are productive immediately. But in turn, we lose that resource.
Oh, it's called capital flight and brain drain.
Well, you call it what you like. What we're saying is fine. That is a private decision of the individual to
Correct.
perhaps find greener fields
Yes.
for that person. But that resource has to be replenished. You have to understand that these people are not a never-ending resource. You have to contribute to making sure that there are more of the same skills following behind that person that has left.
True.
Or, for that matter, that we are left with the same standard of people that can also contribute
So
to
hindi tayo
our development.
iiwanan.
Exactly.
How? By
Right.
training?
By providing, for example, the facilities to train people along the same standards as those that have left.
Here, without necessarily going there.
Now, say for example, we are now currently sending away a lot of our tradesmen.
Correct.
They are the best of the welders that you can find.
Mhm.
They are engaged in mining companies, in shipbuilding,
Shipbuilding,
elsewhere.
yes.
And they know how to weld much better than any other tradesman, and I dare say that. The ones that are left behind are not as skilled. Obviously, they are not qualified to go because their skills are not as good. Therefore, if you want something welded in Metro Manila, you're gonna get substandard welding, aren't you?
Yes.
So how does that help
What was the
our country?
proposal then? How
How
does
the-
that propose?
We say, bring your skills, bring the standards, say for example in the case of Australia.
Bring them here.
Bring your skills here, bring your standards here, train them according to Australian standards, so therefore you have a continuing supply of Australian standard and trained individuals.
Instead of just sucking out replenishment.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what we're saying, right? So replenish what you're taking. Take a, I guess, a moral responsibility that you cannot keep.
So it
taking
becomes
away.
sustaining at least.
It becomes, and that includes nursing.
Yes,
it
yes,
includes
lahat ng profession.
accountant. Well, not necessarily accountants, but the other trades. And there is a commercial benefit to that as well, Harry.
High
If,
technical.
if, for example, you're training the people in plumbing techniques that are of Australian standard or Italian standard, it also opens the possibility of exporting your plumbing supplies to the Philippines because your people are already trained according to your standards. Electrical goods. I mean, like, forget the
So increasing the quality of our technical expertise.
to this day, we still see electricians putting two wires together and then taping it and all that. That's old hat.
Yeah, nobody.
You can now
abroad,
do
yeah.
scrimping and that's it.
Yeah.
You use the technology that's available.
Yeah, you scrimp, yeah.
But
Tools yan eh. May
tools,
yan
it's
eh,
all tools. But
yeah.
this could be
Tooling,
Australian tools that can be applied here, right? And therefore, when they go to
Tama
Australia,
yan.
they are already used to that standard.
Yeah. I've
Anyway,
heard
that's-
that. I read that in media.
And-
Public-private partnership. Sorry, I'm going
Yeah,
fast
yeah.
because
No, that's
there's a
fine.
lot of
Yeah,
issues I
yeah.
want you to
Yeah.
promote on this show.
Yeah, no problem. With the private-public property partnership, right? We have issues that and you'll have to excuse me because I need
Go ahead,
to
go ahead.
refresh my memory on that. The issues are really more on the Philippine government side, right? And what we're saying is basically threefold, right? We have to undertake some measures to strengthen the program, right? In addition, of course, to the recommendations by the PPP coalition, right? And it's 3.1. Reevaluate policy behind foreign equity restrictions and clarify the control
Oh, may
test.
restriction nga eh.
That's one. Secondly, establish measures to address uncertainties on the issuance of public utility franchises.
It's limited because it's all local dapat.
And the third
That's
point
the
is to
Constitution.
concretize government protection of private investors from regulatory risk. These are the points that our government should address first before we start trying to trump up this PPP to foreign government. Let's get our house in order first. Right?
I can't argue with any of the 3 points because it's so correct. It's too limiting and too restricting. We want to
Anyway.
go forward, pero you're chaining your foot and you can't move forward.
Exactly.
so to
Anyway,
speak.
the PABC has put this forward. We've tabled this, and we hope that again from a multi-sectoral point that the government then realizes yes, there are inputs that are coming in from the private sector that they should look at. Right?
Pero hindi natin sinasalang bakit hindi matuloy-tuloy kasi may mga limitation
There are
called
limitations.
consideration. Let's go to tourism.
Okay.
Where are we in tourism?
In the matter of tourism, the Australian tourists to the Philippines have been growing from, say, a figure of 80,000 tourists in 10 years ago, say,
10 years, yeah.
to about 150,000.
Okay, so
Right.
we've doubled.
So we've doubled that, and unfortunately, between say a choice of Bali and Manila or the Philippines, the ordinary Australian will go to Bali
yeah.
because it is more exotic. It is
There's also a lot of awareness.
there's
compared
more
to Manila.
awareness and stuff like that. But I have a personal opinion as to why we are not as exotic as other Asian countries.
That
It
is-
simply boils down to architecture.
Okay.
We do not have an architecture that really says that they're now in the Philippines. If you go to Bangkok, you go to Thailand, immediately you know you're in Thailand.
Kulang ng image
If,
as
if
far
you go
as
to
tropical.
Malaysia, the same
tropical
thing.
image.
We don't have the exotic architecture. So what
Ah.
I have been suggesting is for three governments departments to get together. One, of course, obviously tourism. The other one is DILG, and the third one is DPWH.
So infrastructure.
What I've been saying is for the DILG to identify all the areas all over the Philippines which have the old Spanish forts, the garrisons that were there that were put up.
Attraction yan eh.
And they are still there. And
Yes.
there must be hundreds, if not thousands, of them that are currently in state of
Collapse.
disrepair.
Yeah, this
DILG identifies where they are. DPWH restores them as best it can.
Tourism
and of course,
promotes it.
tourism promotes it. Right?
Our visa issues.
457
Yeah,
visa.
457. Where's that
457 visa.
Parang more
again,
open.
It's more open, and again, the visa is a requirement for our tradesmen to go to Australia, and there is a high demand for our tradesmen to go, from drivers, from highly experienced drivers to again electricians, welders,
So we're bringing down
plumbers.
restrictions so we can import them
Not
there.
necessarily bring down. No. We don't want Australia to lower its standards just to allow us. But we want the implementation of the 457 visa to be addressed in three areas that we're seeing. So 4 areas. The pass mark.
Pass mark.
Yeah.
Okay.
We are recommending that the pass mark of 5 be maintained, but the minimum pass mark for each category be reverted back to 4.5. What it means is that there are different passing grades, right, depending on the category. And we're saying, okay, keep the overall as 5, but put some more importance on others than what it is. Because,
Konti flexibility.
yeah, for example, a top-class welder
Yeah.
knows his trade, but maybe his English comprehension is not that good. But it does not mean that he can't weld 2 pieces of metal together, right?
I see your point.
So why say that his English is going to jeopardize his
workload,
his
yeah, his
workload,
work
right?
output.
So what we're saying is adjust it properly.
good point.
The other one is the technical assessment. We're saying that to recognize comparable skills examination conducted by local trade testing centers, right? To avoid delays and the cost. The inflexible and inconsistent application of market salary requirement. What it means is that Filipinos that enter Australia on a 457 visa, some are actually paid slightly more than the Australian workers by a couple of dollars more, right? Not because of any other reason except that it's offsetting certain benefits that an Australian gets from, say, Medicare,
All right.
right, things like that, which a contract worker does not get.
All right.
But what happens is that the perception is, oh, why is he getting more than an average Australian? So
Yeah,
it's
but
not
maybe
that-
it's just
yeah.
an awareness issue. Of trying
It's
to
an
battle.
awareness
Yeah, it's
issue,
an
and that has
awareness
to be
issue.
addressed as well. And of course, the contract, there are contracts that both the worker and the employer enter into. The worker is at liberty to break that contract, and so is the
So is
employer.
the employer. Both
So
sides.
it's not fair to both parties. So that has to be strengthened a bit.
The more sensitive issue as we go into it, mining. How do we tackle and what does the PABC propose?
Okay. I think for the benefit of your viewers, Harry, it is important to understand that the mining law as it is, the Philippine government is still the owner of the assets, right?
The produce.
Yeah, what's in the ground. What the mining law provides is for the government to enter into a contract with a contractor or mining company to do the actual extraction. Now, when that happens, it is incumbent upon the client, which is the Philippine government, to make sure that everything is paved properly for the operations to continue without any
what is happening in
encumbrance.
reality?
The reality is you invite people to come to the Philippines to do your mines. Once they're here, you are on your own, right? I have no involvement whatsoever, right, in paving the way for you to be able to mine properly. Right? Now, in addition to that, we have, of course, a national mining law, right, which is stymied by a mayor somewhere in some province that won't issue a business permit, right? And these mining companies have
national issues na nababagsak. Yeah.
I mean, these mining companies are compliant. They are able to provide for all sorts of documentation to satisfy national government that their operation is above board. I know of a case where, as of 9 years ago, they had already sunk $150 million in developing that mine site without extracting a single ounce of ore.
Yeah.
Right? And they still are in the country, right? And largely because they have the confidence in the future of mining in the Philippines. Now, earlier we talked about the trade imbalance between the Philippines and Australia.
Okay.
All it takes is one or two mining companies to be given the go signal to mine, and the total imbalance is wiped out. Right? As a matter of fact, we end up being on the other side. Now, for the country to move forward, right? For the country to finally get to where we should be, mining is one of the single industries that will contribute to that development. Right? Without mining, we will continue to wallow in the state that we are in, right? And without mining, and without any immediate national government imprimatur to really get mining going, we will continue to be bypassed, right, by the more serious mining companies that are saying, why go to the Philippines when you can go to Chile, you can go to anywhere else, who are more serious.
Here we keep changing laws, we don't follow it, administration after administration, pa-iba-iba.
The way, I'm not a miner, I have no
interest there, yes.
Well, I wouldn't say I have no interest in mining. I have interest in mining in that I would like mining.
Yes,
to be part.
But you have no money or invested in it, you're not biased or partial.
I don't have a mining company, put it that way.
Okay.
If people still believe that mining destroys the environment, perhaps they should be made aware that there are very stringent environmental laws, and in fact, the Philippines is actually developing one of the most up-to-date environmental laws, all right? And perhaps it may even serve as a role model for most countries. The shareholders of mining companies that are actually based in say, Canada or Australia would be the first ones to take their own companies to task if they are not, or if they are violating any of the environmental rules and regulations of the company. So there are many I guess
in place securities,
social and community group standards that prevent mining companies to practice outside of the prescribed laws, environmental laws of any host country. Right.
So nagkukulang talaga yung host. Gusto natin mag-mining, hindi naman natin, we don't pave the procedure or the process. Iipitin ka ng local government, di ba?
In more practical terms, if I were a mining company and I'm going to a pristine or raw area. Okay. The first thing, of course, I will do is try and talk to the community that will be immediately involved in the mining operations. If the community, and most often the communities are in far-flung places, with very little livelihood, right? So I would say, please help us with this project. You are good with the land. You're
Indigenous
good
labor.
indigenous labor, and say, can you gather for us the indigenous and seeds of trees that
Yes, so we can replant
so
as we
you
go
can
down.
replant it. They know how to
Yes, they know
germinate
to-
these
yes,
seeds.
yes. So working with the locals.
Yeah, and immediately start creating jobs,
Yeah.
right? And when you do that, then they have schools that is being put up by the mining company. They are
There's commerce already,
There's
yeah.
commerce
There's
already.
commerce
There's
already,
roads
yeah,
already, and if that area happens to have any tourism potential, then there is access to the tourism sites.
Albert, we've reached the end of the show. It's really, really fast, now the top of the hours here. A very quick message, a very short, quick message to our viewers.
Well, there is much that has been done by various sectors on the improving of the Philippines-Australia relations. The PABC, short for Philippines-Australia Business Council, has been quietly working behind the scenes in trying to protect the Philippine interest in doing business with Australia. And we have reached a lot of milestones in doing that. So, but most importantly, we encourage companies to seriously look at Australia as an export destination. It is, in fact, very easy to do business with Australia. The Philippine-Australia Business Council, and we have a website. It's www.pabc.org. Have a look at that and contact us if you need any assistance. And like everything else, we provide that support, right?
Okay, thank you very much. Before we end, I'd like to give you from our sponsor, Lakalut, German toothpaste.
Thank you.
Medicinal
Right.
toothpaste, great product.
I'll definitely try it. Thank
There
you.
you go. Ladies and gentlemen, we hope you've understood, you enjoy the program. Basically, ang nagkukulang, ang tingin ko, especially in that last issue, mag-iimbita ka. Para ka nag-imbita ng bisita sa bahay mo, hindi ka namang, wala ka namang katulong o nagtutulong sa'yo para umupo na kayo dito. Ito may tubig o ito may pagkain. Para ka nag-iimbita, tapos parang binabaliwala mo. When we invite them to come in, like Mr. Garcia just said, inimbita natin ang investor para pumasok, para kalkalin, bungkalin yung lupa, para kunin. At kung anong kinukuha naman nila, babalik din naman sa gobyerno. Hindi pala yung tatago nila. Hindi lang yung taxes, pero yung actual produce para yumaman ng bayan. Ang problema, imbitahin natin sila, tapos, sige, bahala ka kumuha ng lisensya mo. Bahala ka gumawa ng kalye dyan. Haharasin ka lahat ng tao. Mali eh. But then again, we've got these issues, these sensitivities. In this program, it ain't politics, but you see, in commerce, in trade, mercantilism, it's all studied with political issues because it involves human beings. The human being in this case, of course, we've got the poor judiciary, which we're already saddled with. We've got an aggressive administration. That's great. Now let's see how we have local government that should be working with us. But then again, in the end, the game is perception. You sitting there, you make the decision. Nagkukulang ba tayo o hindi? And one last point before I close the show. I always like to do this every week because I'm very adamant about it, and it's an advocacy. If you ever come across this product called Aeronox, it's a fuel something gadget. Don't buy it, and if you have it in your car, take it out. It ruins your car. Ang problema niyan, Aeronox. That's a problem. Thank you very much. Stay with us. We'll be back again next week. Tomorrow we've got the show. No, it's on Friday. I have a show now on Friday. It's called Business and Living at 7 o'clock. It replays 7 in the morning on Saturday. This one, Talk to Harry, well, you're watching it at night, so it's 8 o'clock, and the replay is at 11 o'clock. And you can watch it again at the YouTube/GNN Talk to Harry. It'll be up in about 2-3 days. Magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat. Thank you very much, Albert. Hey, we were able to tackle. You are what you watch.